viewers, and welcome to another episode of the President's Diary. As you may recall, on January 30th, the World Health Organization announced the coronavirus or COVID-19 disease as a public health emergency of international concern. And since then, the Gambia government, under the leadership of President Adama Barrow, has taken steps to alert Gambians, together with the Ministry of Health, on some of the ways that they can prevent themselves from the deadly COVID-19. And this episode of the President's Diary will solely focus on some of the policy decisions that were taken by President Barrow in combating the coronavirus in the Gambia. We will as well look at the key appointments that were made by the President, as well as his virtual engagements with regional and global leaders in the fight against the coronavirus. To begin this edition of the President's Diary, let's look back on the first policy decision that was made by President Barrow, which saw the suspension of all travels by public officials as a measure to prevent the spread of the coronavirus in the Gambia. Soon after that policy decision, the President addressed the nation, in which he ordered for the closure of schools, mosques, and churches, as well as suspension of all public gatherings. He also used the opportunity to thank the Ministry of Health and all public officials on the front line in the wake of the pandemic. Here is an excerpt of the address.
The Ministry of Health and partners have been working extremely hard over the period to enhance their preparedness against COVID-19. For this purpose, an extraordinary emergency meeting comprising members of the National Health Emergency Committee and senior medical practitioners in various specializations was convened. Another important measure taken has been to strengthen surveillance at the airport and at various points of entry along the Gambian border. In addition, the public has been encouraged to take sanitary measures, among other precautionary actions. To reiterate the important health messages of preventing, containing, and managing coronavirus, I implore you all to improve on personal hygiene, especially by hand washing, often with soap, covering the mouth with tissue or the elbow when coughing or sneezing, and social distancing to prevent transmission. All citizens and residents of the Gambia are reminded of the importance of adhering to these preventive measures and avoid handshaking.
As part of preventive measures in line with regional and international standards, President Barrow ordered for the suspension of flights from hot zone countries of the coronavirus, in addition to a mandatory quarantine of persons traveling from 47 countries considered to be risk areas of the virus.
His Excellency, the President, had issued a statement in which he had mentioned that flights coming from hotspots, the passengers will be quarantined. So that information was sent to the partners. When this flight came from the UK, the information had already gotten to the various people, and the individuals were quarantined at a hotel.
This was followed by the approval of a $500 million fund by the President after a long cabinet deliberation on the issue.
We had a long cabinet meeting, you realized, and quite a lot of the time was spent discussing on the situation of COVID-19 in the country. The cabinet was also informed that His Excellency, the President, has approved $500 million emergency fund for our response to the coronavirus, that's the COVID-19. So this is highly welcome. The Minister of Finance and ourselves are going to get together to make sure that our response is adequate, is effective, and it is also timely. So we thank the President and the government for responding so swiftly to provide the resources for us to deal with this problem.
As the coronavirus continues to be of great concern globally and nationally, President Barrow addressed the nation for the second time with measures aimed at preventing, containing, managing the spread of the virus after the Gambia registered cases of COVID-19. With the mass movement of people and public gatherings being threats to the containment of COVID-19, the President declared a state of public emergency, which saw the closure of non-essential services as well as the reduction in number of passengers in both private and commercial vehicles.
To curtail our exposure to infection through close interactions, my government has taken the decisions to scale down government operations. Accordingly, all heads of government institutions, parastatals, private enterprises, and other institutions have been instructed to scale down their activities, with minimal staff to perform basic services. Where feasible, staff can work from home. At the private sector level, all non-essential services are declared suspended with immediate effect. Only essential services, such as emergency medical services, sale of essential items and commodities, will continue. I have been informed that there are enough supplies of essential commodities for the immediate and medium-term needs of the country. In this light, strict measures have been devised to curb attempts to halt or hike the prices of basic commodities. I implore the business community to continue to cooperate in stabilizing the prices of all basic commodities. Gambians and all residents in the Gambia must understand that business is not as usual. Hence the need to take strict measures to protect ourselves. Fellow Gambians, distinguished audience, on 18 March 2020, I signed the fourth proclamation in relation to the pandemic, which was published in the Gazette under Section 34, 1B of the 1997 Constitution. In it, I declare that a situation exists which may lead to a state of public emergency if it passes. I have now signed a second proclamation declaring a state of public emergency throughout the Gambia. In invoking the powers invested in me as president under the Emergency Powers Act of the laws of the Gambia. This is one of a series of regulations I have signed, starting with the freezing of prices of all essential commodities to prevent any form of hoarding. Already, an essential commodities committee have been set up to monitor and enforce these regulations. In this regard, I appeal to the goodwill of the business community to respect these measures for the general welfare of our people.
Recognizing that Gambians deserve an urgent national response to the health and socio-economic crisis resulting to losses in productivity and remittances to Gambian households, President Adam Barrow launched a massive $734 million food relief package that will benefit 84% of the Gambian population. This is in addition to the procurement of a $12 million worth of items for the Health Ministry through a partnership with the World Bank.
We are aware that about 200,000 people are engaged in retail and service sectors. To support this important business community, the tax returns for 2019 have been deferred from the first quarter of 2020 to the second quarter. In addition, there are ongoing reviews to tease out possibilities to further support small and medium-scale enterprises. Another critical measure to control COVID-19 is the restriction on the movement of people through the stay-at-home policy. Notwithstanding this policy, however, government continue to pay salaries to public servants. My government has decided to decongest the prisons and allow for social distancing. To this end, I have pardoned 121 prisoners with effect from the 23rd April 2020. My government recognizes that Gambians deserve an urgent national response to both health and socio-economic crisis resulting from losses in productivity and remittances to Gambian households. Accordingly, we will ensure that support provided to all citizens, especially the vulnerable, is real and valuable. In this respect, following a thorough review exercise, over $734 million is now available to support 84 deserving households countrywide. Such support will include rice, oil, sugar to each of the vulnerable households identified. I must stress that this amount is different from the $500 million already earmarked for the Ministry of Health to upgrade and sufficiently strengthen our health system to address COVID-19 challenges and beyond. In partnership with the security agents, the health response teams and communities along our borders have stepped up surveillance at both official and unofficial entry points and along the coastal areas. These partnerships have resulted to apprehension of some people who sneak into the country.
Additionally, under the leadership of the President, as part of efforts to mitigate the impact of COVID-19, the government announces a 29.1 million student relief package for Gambian students studying abroad. A sum of 12,915,880 has been allocated to help 836 non-government funded students, while 16.2 million will go to the government funded scholarship package.
Aside from the immediate COVID-19 emergency program, government continue to pursue its development agenda. In line with the pledges made during my nationwide tour last year, 33 ambulances have been procured. The move is indeed timely, as the vehicles will support the health facilities across the nation, especially if the COVID-19 cases escalate here.
On May 28, President Barrow participated in a high-level UN virtual meeting on financing for development in the era of COVID-19, In his address, President Barrow described the pandemic as a serious economic and social challenge for the global economy with devastating effects on most vulnerable countries.
We need to find ways to increase economic growth, save existing jobs, and create more new jobs through access to various forms of external finance. For some of our countries, migrant remittances are a lifeline. Therefore, we must find ways to reduce transaction costs in order to make more resources available as remittance. Our domestic resources mobilization must further enhance efforts to tackle corruption, while we solicit international cooperation to eliminate it. I urge the international partners to do more towards development assistance. The pandemic represents an opportunity to take bolder action to truly leave no one behind. Let us work together and in solidarity so that we recover better.
As part of efforts to communicate and connect with regional leaders on the pandemic, President Adam Barrow on the 23rd of April took part in the ECOWAS virtual summit themed on the situation and impact of coronavirus on the ECOWAS region. During his deliberation, he highlighted that 2/3 of workers in the Gambia that work in the informal sector and account for 80% of the informal sector are facing a difficult situation due to COVID-19.
In revisiting our policies to address COVID-19, health and social protection measures have been given priority, ranging from testing and treatment to building the human resource base in the health sector and expanding social assistance. Our fiscal policy measures include referring, filing and payment, reducing social contributions, granting low-interest loans to firms, reprioritizing spending, and financing larger fiscal deficits. Maximum efforts will be placed on protecting employment and incomes for enterprises and workers negatively impacted by the indirect effect of COVID-19.
President Barrow assured that financial, industrial, and trade policies will be reviewed further. However, the immediate policy response to the current situation is to focus on saving lives, limiting the spread of the virus, and managing the crisis. Viewers, let's take a look at the recently held virtual extraordinary intersessional summit of the heads of states and governments of the Organization of African, Caribbean, and Pacific States, where President Barrow described as extremely destructive the impact of COVID-19 on human lives and livelihoods.
Like other countries, the Gambia has adopted measures to contain the spread of the coronavirus. These include declaring a state of public emergency, observing WHO regulations, and mitigating the impact of such strict measures on the public. Already, however, the pandemic has impacted severely on both the formal and informal sectors of our economy. The need to pay due attention to both sectors is urgent, noting that our informal sector contributes crucially towards sustaining livelihoods and the GDP. In short, the impact on employment, government revenue, and the subsistence of the people is immensely negative. Undoubtedly, the containment measures will have multiple effects in both urban and rural settings. Economically, women and the youth are the most vulnerable groups, as their income-generating activities center heavily on the tourism, fisheries, and artisanal industries. It is imperative, therefore, that we seize this opportunity to call upon our development partners to collaborate with us to respond effectively to the economic challenges posed by COVID-19. With respect to SDG 11 on sustaining our settlements, this is particularly relevant for such vulnerable groups.
In what was hailed as a boost for the judiciary of the Gambia, President Barrow swears in two Gambian judges expressing delight in the fact that Gambian judiciary is regaining its lost image and public confidence within the 3 years of his administration. Gambianizing the judiciary has been central to judicial reform program of his government's National Development Plan 2018-2021. Gambian judges currently account for 17 out of 25 superior court judges, all of whom were appointed between 2017 to date.
I feel optimistic and encouraged when highly skilled and dedicated Gambians like them are willing to take up positions of responsibility in government. My administration is realizing that the judiciary is regaining its lost image and public confidence. I must challenge you to commit to serving the nation with honor and to the best of your ability. Your commitment and desire to serve professionally without fear or favor will go a long way to giving hope to the public sector and ensuring that set results are achieved.
The appointments of Justice Momodu S.M. Jallo and Justice Landing M. Sani came following the recommendation by the Judicial Service Commission and approved by President Barrow. The same occasion also witnessed the swearing-in of Permanent Secretary Momodu Mbai Jabang, who gathered a wealth of experience as a civil servant in the Agriculture Ministry prior to his appointment as Permanent Secretary. On 2nd April, the new Chief of Defense Staff, Major General Yankuba Trame, paid a courtesy call on President Barrow at the State House in Banjul, where he assured him of the military's support in the fight against COVID-19. CDS Drame, accompanied by the Minister of Defense and his Deputy CDS, also briefed the President on the situation of the Gambia Armed Forces and the proposals of the new CDS in the context of improving the structures and operations of the Army. Viewers, before we wrap up this episode of the President's Diary, let's take a look at the roads and bridges projects in the URR commissioned by President Barrow in 2018 to give you an update of the progress currently being made on the projects in the Upper River region. right, viewers, that brings us to the end of this episode of the President's Diary. But before we leave, just a quick reminder for us to observe the WHO guidelines in preventing the spread of COVID-19. It is here with us in the Gambia and we can stop it. Let's wash our hands regularly with soap, use hand sanitizers, cover our face with masks, especially when we are going to public places. And of course, we avoid gatherings by all means. So I would also like to use the opportunity on behalf of the OP media team to thank the frontliners out there helping in combating the virus, and of course the communication officers helping to spread the messages in combating the coronavirus in the Gambia. So till we come your way again for the next episode of the President's Diary, it is a bye from us, and thank you for the pleasure of your company.